Roswell has a nice background too. As I've learned about backgrounds.
Yeah, I'm just upset that it won't show the water in this. I gotta lean over from the
I really, yeah, let me see.
it's the fountain, but for some reason in this background, I'm blocking it. So.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, I think that's what most people would be doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that background. Hey, Lauren.
All right, we're live, Carol.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone to the Athens in Motion Commission meeting this Tuesday, October 27th. And I am going to share my screen now so that I can share our agenda and we'll get our meeting started. So go ahead, share screen. That's not it. Okay. Sorry, guys. Oh. I'll be right with you. This little tab doesn't like to move away. Okay. This is enough of the screen for me to be sharing. We're having the call to order. We have our agenda here. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Do we want to add MLK Day of Service to the agenda?
That would be good. We can do that. Let's add that to the agenda. I'm going to add that on Chair's information. Okay. Anything else? Can I have someone make a motion to approve this agenda, amended agenda?
Carol,
Yes.
before you do that, I can't see the whole thing. I don't know what all is on it.
Oh, you can't. Okay, there you go.
I'm seeing a piece of your screen. Is there any way to
maximize it? Yeah. Somehow I can do that, and we can get rid of this thing somehow too, can't we? Well, that's what you're gonna get, because.
All right.
What do we got here? So we see what else is on it here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve this amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second it.
Second by Aaron. All in favor say yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
And no nays? No nays. Okay, so the agenda is approved. We're going to move on here to the public comments. Hillary, do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay, that's wonderful. Next, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes, which Jake did a wonderful job with, despite him saying that he didn't. We have multi-page, the best minutes of any commission. So, does anyone have any changes to these minutes?
I was there.
Okay.
Since I was absent.
When you're watching the recording, you can't, because when Carol's showing her screen, you can't see who's on the slide. So
okay.
That's what I was going to ask.
Roswell, weren't you there too?
Roswell was there too. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to cut this out and put that up here. All right. That was good. Good catch there, James. Does anyone have any comments on this? Did you have any questions here, Jake?
Nope. I didn't pause it. I watched the record. That was the difference, is I didn't have time to pause it. So
okay.
It's slightly more like if I were taking minutes doing that.
Like real minutes, like where people aren't pausing it. Okay.
And we talked a lot during both the project revision process and the committee updates that I did not capture all of that.
Okay.
So
well,
I think that those committees also have their own minutes. So when they were reporting stuff they did in the committee, that's already captured in the committee minutes.
Okay. Teresa and I appreciated the minutes when we were talking about the project revision this morning, so thank you for that. Anyone else have any amendments here? If not, could someone make a motion to approve these?
Lauren will make a motion.
Lauren has made it, and a second from
I'll second that.
Aaron. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Changes? Okay, nays? No, okay, great, approved. We are moving along. All right, we're gonna move it over to Hillary. I think I'm gonna take this off.
Okay. Oh, Carol, you're on mute.
All right, I'm passing it on to Hillary and Ronnie.
All right, so we have Riverbend Road today. Ronnie and I are going to be tag teaming this. I'm going to introduce kind of the context of Riverbend Road, and then Ronnie's really going to go into more of the technical side this time. So let me share my screen. All right. So Riverbend Road is a Tier 1 pedestrian funded project. Okay, there it goes. The Tier 2 bike part of it is unfunded, and this shows kind of context of the bike unfunded portions because for the most part there are sidewalks on the Village and College Station, but College Station is the only one with bike lanes. And I feel like that's probably going to be a big emphasis of the conversation, especially during the mayor and commission work session and for you guys as well. The other projects surrounding Riverbend are currently unfunded, but there are existing bike lanes on College Station, there's existing sidewalks, and then South Village Avenue is actually a Tier 1 bike project, and it has sidewalks for the most part. And then I kind of have where the existing bike lanes are Riverbend. They're they can definitely be better, and with repavement, there is an opportunity to change those if a multi-use path is not favorable for everyone. But definitely near that intersection of South Village and Riverbend Road, that is lacking bike lanes. Bike lanes just kind of disappear there. And then there is a railroad crossing that would have to be worked around as well, or an old railroad crossing. Is it active? I'm not sure, actually. And I don't think it is. So the public outreach that we've done is we did originally, before we started reinvigorating these projects with better public outreach and complete streets, we did a sidewalk concept review and public forum a year ago, almost exactly. And then when we reinvigorated our process, we did a walk audit in January 16th. That should say 25 mailers, not just 2. It's 25 mailers were sent out. There are 7 attendees, and James joined us as well. He was our Athens in Motion member, and then 6 community members. Most of the community members were UGA affiliated because this is a pretty big gap in a sidewalk for the UGA community. The feedback was positive for a sidewalk. We walked on a day that was after rain, so the shoulders were particularly muddy. So you can see the need for a sidewalk here. It also probably had the most active pedestrian activity of any of the walk audits we did. Just a lot of students walking from Riverbend Parkway to College Station and back and forth. There were multiple comments requesting us to look at improved bicycle facilities, and there were concerns over the lack of streetlights and safe crossings, and the excessive speeds and the intersection safety at Riverbend Parkway. And from here, I'm going to, and part of this project was, when we first looked at it, we looked at Riverbend from College Station to Millage. And then when we re-looked at it, we segmented it. So we have costs from College Station to Riverbend Parkway, one just a sidewalk, one for the multi-use path. Then we have a second cost from Riverbend Parkway to Millage that also is a sidewalk and a multi-use path. And that kind of gives you guys a bit more options on which segments you may want to fund, which ones you find higher priority, along with the mayor and commission. And just know that if we do a sidewalk, we still have opportunity to improve those existing bike lanes. So it's not as if this won't get bike facilities ever. It's just whether or not you and the mayor and commission want to do a protected facility along this roadway, or if the delineated facility with the bike lane is sufficient. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ronnie, who will talk more about the cost and the specifics of the concepts.
All right. Well, thank you, Hillary, and thank you all for having me with you today. Hillary did a fantastic job giving an intro and some background of the project. So as she spoke, we are looking here, the presentation pretty much divides the corridor or the alignment of this project into two segments. There is overlap. So if we consider segment 1 for design, we would design the intersection at Riverbend Parkway, or if we consider segment 2, and that would also be included in the cost estimates. So the total cost estimate you will see later on at every alternative presented to you will have a total cost estimate that addresses the overlap. So the total number you see has addressed the overlap. There will not be any additional money savings from that point. So it would be easier for you guys to make a decision without having to do any further calculations, and just as you see the numbers presented. Utilized here Hillary's slide to just magnify the segments and show where they are, segment 1 and segment 2, as we start with the alignment at Millage Avenue going towards College Station. You all are familiar with the existing conditions. You are seeing also the slides that would be presented to Mayor and Commission for the majority of them. I'm not going to go into details of what the corridor is like and the current existing conditions. As I mentioned, you guys are very familiar with it. The alignment starts at South Millage, continues on the right-hand side as you travel on Riverbend Road, all the way up to Riverbend Parkway. Segment 2 of the project starts just before Riverbend Parkway, continues on the right-hand side all the way down to College Station intersection with Riverbend Road. As you see here, there is existing substandard bike lanes. They're not 5 feet. That's why I'm calling them substandards. We've also made notes of that in our concepts. Riverbend Road sidewalk. It's a total of 7,300 feet of sidewalk network. Segment 1 would be 4,400. Segment 2 would be 3,100, with about 200 feet overlap at the Riverbend Parkway. It fills in a gap from existing sidewalk on Millage Avenue all the way to College Station Road. Pedestrian access and connectivity improvements are proposed at multiple intersections, and like South Millage Avenue, Riverbend Parkway, major UGA and apartment complexes, driveways, and others, with accessibility ramps, crosswalks, and signal upgrades to existing traffic light signals. UGA have expressed interest in funding 600 feet of sidewalk from the greenhouse driveway to College Station Road. Controlled crossings with rectangular rapid flashing beacons and crosswalks to be considered, and that is pending warrant studies by the department upon concept approval. There's only one location we are proposing this, but that does not mean that we may not find out that we may need others along any segment of this project. For different sidewalk alternatives has been studied, including 7-foot sidewalk, which is alternative 4, with cost estimates ranging between $2.7 to $6.3 million. And this is for the entire segment. In the next slide, we'll look at, all right, there we go. Next slide. This is our first sidewalk alternative. It's a 5-foot sidewalk on a rural shoulder the cost estimate on the right-hand side broken down into segment 1 and segment 2 for construction right-of-way, utilities, railroad coordination, and design services. And also we account for an overlap at Riverbend Parkway and give the segment cost, total cost, and also the entire alignment cost. For segment 1, we're looking at $1.34 million. At segment 2 is $1.45 million. Total alignment for total project cost for the entire alignment is estimated at $2.7 million. Pros and cons for this concept: lowest construction cost, most economic for sidewalk alternatives. Sidewalk is further from the roadway. Bike lanes separate from pedestrians. Only minor drainage improvements needed, and no retaining walls with some exceptions. Cons for this alternative: this alternative has a larger footprint and has greater impact to adjacent parcels, requires more right-of-way and permanent easements. Sidewalk alternative number 2. This is a 5-foot sidewalk on an urban shoulder with curb and gutter.
Ronnie, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
To get too long into this. You divided this into segment 1 and segment 2 because we might want to switch out some. I mean, maybe I missed that when you said that. Why was it divided into 2 segments?
We realized that the cost is very cumbersome, and also we realized that there is a priorities, including pedestrian counts, goat path observations, and the how many, like, who are we serving with connecting the entire corridor or the entire alignment versus looking at Riverbend Parkway connection to College Station.
Segment 2 is much more heavily used.
Okay,
observations.
Okay.
And segment 2 is also the area where UGA might fund some of it, 600 feet.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I was making notes, and I was like, that seems like the priority section. Yeah. Now, millage seems like more of a, when millage is built out, if it is built out as a tier 1 project someday in the future, then that other segment becomes much more important and relevant.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, James. That's and everyone else. So alternative number 2 with 5-foot sidewalk, urban shoulder. The cost estimate shown here for segment 1 is for $1.66 million, and segment 2 is $1.8 million. Total cost would be $3.3 million. Pros for this concept: moderate construction cost, bike lanes separate from pedestrians, and no retaining walls with some exceptions. Cons for this option includes some retaining walls that will increase cost. Some piped drainage system need to be managed through stormwater system. High right-of-way and easement cost, and high property impact. UGA was not in favor of these 2 alternatives as they utilized little to no retaining walls and with heavy impact to their properties along Riverbend Road, including to the existing entrance for the golf course and the pecan farms, and also other green space that they have along Riverbend Road. Alternative number 3, this alternative was favorable to UGA. In this alternative, we looked at utilizing additional retaining walls to limit the impact. And as you can see with the typical sections here, when we utilize a retaining wall, the temporary easement becomes, in some areas, unnecessary or limited. With that, the alternative we looked at showed that the cost has increased drastically. With the retaining walls, we're looking at segment 1 for a $4.16 million, segment 2 did not increase that much because we already were utilizing retaining walls and having to utilize them due to the steep shoulders in some areas along segment 2. A total cost would be for alternative number 3 is $5.9 million. Pros and cons for this alternative. This is a flexible design that optimizes field conditions. We're utilizing urban and rural shoulder as we see fit to minimize impact to property. And it's also optimal footprint that reduces right-of-way costs in some areas, bike lanes separate from pedestrians, and reduces property impact. Cons include higher cost compared with a sidewalk alternative 1 and 2, requires piped drainage system to manage stormwater, and includes significant retaining wall installation, as I mentioned. Alternative number 7, this is derived from multiple comments from commissioners requesting us looking into at a wider sidewalk what the cost would look like. And the engineer on the project has provided a letter of opinion with a cost estimate. And that cost estimate was derived from sidewalk alternative number 3. So with utilizing retaining walls, if we increase the width of the sidewalk to 7 feet while holding the buffer, 3 feet buffer between back of curb and edge of sidewalk, or the pavement, edge of pavement and the edge of sidewalk, which is 7 feet at a rural section, we'll end up with this alternative. A total cost for this alternative is 4.27 for segment 1, 2.17 for segment 2, and a total cost of $6,334,000. Pros for this alternative: flexible design that optimizes field conditions, 7-foot width, improves pedestrian comfort, bike lanes separate from pedestrians, and reduces property impact. Cons for this: highest cost for sidewalk alternative, requires pipe drainage system to manage stormwater, includes significant retaining wall installations, and increases impervious surface area. Next, we will be looking.
Ronnie, on that last one, can you said that the 7-foot sidewalk was requested by commissioners, or there was interest in that? Can you explain what the interest? I mean, why 7 feet? Why they want it wider?
The argument made is that it can accommodate more than 1 or 2 people walking, and if they, as I understood, if there is more pedestrian, because often with students walking along that corridor, they're walking in groups sometimes, and it just looking at another alternative. This alternative did not take a lot of effort. It was a letter of opinion with typical sections provided, and just a cost comparison. So we have something to provide and to answer some of the concerns. If there is a desire to move forward, at least we have something that we can provide as a cost estimate.
Okay.
And God forbid students should walk single file.
Or 2 at a time. I mean, come on, it's plenty wide enough for 2 at a time. That's
Riverbend Road multi-use path alternatives. We've looked at the same. This uses the same alignment on the same side of the road. However, the width would be a 10 feet multi-use path, a total of 7,300 feet. Segment 1 would be again 4,400. Segment 2, 3,100, with overlap at Riverbend Parkway for about 200 feet. Fills a network gap from existing sidewalks on South Milledge to existing sidewalks on College Station Road, and provides additional options for bicyclists. Bicycle and pedestrian access and connectivity improvements are proposed at multiple intersections: South Milledge Avenue, Riverbend Parkway, major UGA, and entrances and apartment complexes, driveways, and others, with accessibility ramps, crosswalks, and signal upgrades to existing traffic light signals. UGA has like I mentioned before, showed interest in funding 600 feet of sidewalk. However, we haven't been able to get their feedback on a multi-use path yet. Controlled crossing with rectangular rapid flashing beacons is also proposed on segment 1 as shown, and will be pending warrant studies to be complete by the department upon concept approval. 3 different multi-use path alternatives have been studied with cost estimate ranging between 4.7 million to 6.8 million for the entire alignment.
Ronnie, I'm sorry I missed it, but why that location for the RRFB down near the golf course somewhere, it looks like?
There is multiple residential properties on that side. When you walk the entire corridor, it makes sense to be on one side of the road. However, for these, I think there's at least 5 houses, if memory serves me correctly. There's 5 houses on the other side, and to provide them safe access, RRFBs are recommended. However, it was just from observations in the field. We will have to do pedestrian counts to make sure that they meet warrants before we show them on a concept, or not a concept, on the preliminary engineering plan. And we did want to also mention this, at least so if there is any observations from now until we provide preliminary design approval, if a concept is approved, that gives us the opportunity to implement those or make warrant studies on this alignment at any other location as well, not just this location.
It just strikes me. I think those are student housing, and it would surprise me if students would go out of their way to cross a relatively unbusy road just to be on an RRFB and then have to make up ground in the other direction. I mean, I'm just psychologically speaking, I'm just guessing that would get very little use. Not saying we may not have to do it because of some code reason, but it seems like a lot of money for something that would probably get very little use.
Sure. Appreciate your comment. Definitely valid comment, Mark. The first alternative we have here is a multi-use path utilizing an urban shoulder with no bike lane. This alternative is proposing to remove the existing bike lane to prevent us from having to acquire easements and right-of-way, or minimize the right-of-way and easement acquisition for this alternative. The cost shown here for segment 1 totals $2.78 million, and for segment 2 is about $2.1 million. Pros for this concept or alternative: most economical alternative for multi-use path, 10-foot wide or width, further improves pedestrian comfort, provides separate shared facilities for bicyclists. Cons for this is a larger footprint when compared with sidewalk alternatives, increased cost compared to sidewalk alternatives. Bikes and pedestrians share the same path, requires piped drainage system to manage stormwater and increase impervious surface area. Keep in mind, with this concept, we're not utilizing a lot of walls, so there is heavy impact to adjacent property. And we have not acquired UGA input on here, but we know from the sidewalk alternatives they were not in favor of impacting their property, especially on segment 1.
Hey, Ronnie, when you say UGA, you're talking about the architect's office, or who exactly?
The architect's office.
And is it Laura Mathis or Gwen Darden, or?
Yes, there is it's through Laura Mathis. When I say UGA, it was on multiple occasions we had that feedback from them, and I wouldn't say it was one person. It was UGA official statement that they don't see support for a partnership for a project that have heavy impact if there is ways to minimize impact. And at a concept level, we could not really accurately measure that impact.
Yet it's their faculty and their students who are the primary beneficiaries of this, and it's the university by providing better transit. I mean,
And for some reason, they're not willing to go all the way down to the CCRC, even though that is one of the probably the most heavily trafficked UGA facility on that road. Was that discussed?
So I think there's some internal struggle there. If really, when you look, you have input from the golf course, from the people who are in the fields there, transit, and then you've got the labs up on the north side. And so you have, of course, a big push from the people at the north side where the students are walking the most, and the biggest push back from like the people who own the facilities and the land down at the south end.
Interesting. Okay.
The transportation would understand the need for alternatives to buses or complementary transportation to buses. Okay.
Right.
So with this alternative, like I said, we're showing utilizing retaining walls, but only in a small area. The cost does not reflect a major retaining wall utilization. The alternative, I'm sorry, I already moved to alternative 2. On alternative 1, the alternative 3, which is derived from alternative 1, utilizes retaining walls to minimize impact to property, and therefore we'll look at the cost here in a couple of minutes. The second alternative for a multi-use path, it also utilizes an urban shoulder with curb and gutter. However, this one maintains the existing bike lane. Pros is we have a 10-foot width, further improves pedestrian comfort, pedestrian bike facilities option as well. Cons are higher cost for a multi-use path, requires some retaining walls, large footprint with high impact to property. Bikes and pedestrians share the same path, confusing and uncommon. Maybe I should have not added that in there, but yet to some it could be confusing and uncommon, not to everybody. Requires a piped drainage system to manage stormwater, increased impervious surface area as well. The cost for this alternative for segment 1 is about $4.3 million, and for segment 2 is $2.8 million, with a total cost of $6.8 million. Again, utilization of retaining walls would be at minimum and as necessary on this alignment. The third alternative, mainly derived from the first alternative with heavy utilization of retaining walls, as I mentioned earlier. With this, you can see that the cost estimate went up some for segment 1 and for segment 2 and for the total project as well, with a $4.4 million on segment 1 and $2.4 million on segment 2, and total cost of $6.6 million. For this alternative, the pros include most expensive multi-use path alternative for segment 1, specifically 10-foot width, further improves pedestrian comfort and low impact to property as we utilize your retaining walls. Cons, increased cost due to extensive use of retaining walls, increased cost compared to sidewalk alternatives. Bikes and pedestrians share same path, requires pipe drainage system to manage stormwater, and increase impervious surface area. I know this was a lot to digest. 7 alternatives is a lot to look at and compare costs. In the next slide, you will see that we put together each segment comparison separate, as we anticipate that addressing the entire alignment might be challenging, and to make comparison between the entire alignment cost will definitely consume the available budget for the project, unless you go with a sidewalk only for both alternatives or both segments. Sorry. I hear a question.
If we choose to do this, could we mix and match between segment 1 and segment 2? In other words, pick one alternative for one segment and one for the other?
Yeah, that was exactly my comment.
Sure.
You can make recommendations as you wish based on defensible argument. I would recommend, of course, from a perspective of an alignment. It again, this is in your discretion how you want to vote on these multiple alternatives that we have. I'll finish the cost comparison slides and also present to you the available budget for the program for both programs through T-SPLOS, and we'll open the floor for discussions, and we can go back to those slides. As you see here, and I have color-coded the alternatives based on comparison. So, if one alternative, we have heavily used walls, it would be unfair to compare it with a multi-use alternative that we did not heavily use walls in it. So to show apples to apples comparison from a sidewalk alternative and a multi-use alternative, or even between a regular 5-foot sidewalk and a 7-foot sidewalk, for you to see the cost difference, I did color code those cost differences and how we calculate them. And I'll start with the first concept, and this is a sidewalk alternative 1, 5-foot sidewalk on a rural section. We did not use this alternative as basis for comparison with cost, because all the other multi-use path and sidewalk, to some level, it's either all or some of the alternative utilized urban shoulder with curb and gutter. The second sidewalk alternative utilized retaining walls as needed, not everywhere, and there was heavy impact to property. The third alternative for sidewalk utilized retaining walls to limit impact to properties, and therefore any other alternative utilized walls extensively to limit impact to property. We utilize that alternative as a comparison. So you see those in green, highlighted in green for concept 3, 4, and 7, versus the others are highlighted in red or burgundy, if you wish, and they are 2, 5, and 6. And when we compare the cost, and this is just for segment 1, this is not for the entire project, when we compare the cost for alternative 2 with multi-use path alternative 1 and alternative 2 multi-use path, we noted that the increase in cost is about 68% for multi-use path alternative 1 and 156% for alternative 2 due to retaining walls mainly, and impact to property as well. The same thing for sidewalk alternative number 3 and 4. We did a comparison, and the difference here is about $113,000 in increased cost. And when we compared sidewalk alternative number 3 with multi-use path alternative number 3, the cost difference is $236,000. And I'll take any questions you have on this slide particular. And I hope I wasn't confusing in my presentation.
No, you did a great job on that, and thank you for that. So it sounds like we don't really know, we don't have much of a dialogue going with UGA at this point. Is that correct?
I would say the concepts arrived really late. I received the concepts on Friday, and I worked on them to put the presentation together. I reached out to my contact at UGA, and I reached out again today, and I got a reply back that person is out of the office. We will make effort to communicate with them. We will also have an open survey period in December that citizens and UGA can interact with us and through the survey, or can call us We also we're hopeful that we can have a conversation with UGA before we go live with mayor and commission.
I would hope so, because I'm kind of troubled by what I think I'm hearing, which is that UGA is basically saying, you better use retaining walls so that you don't use too much of our land, even though it's going to cost you, Athens-Clarke County, a whole heck of a lot more to do it the way we want you to do it. And we're not going to contribute, more than, chump change. Is that correct? Or am I being a little cranky?
Yeah, Teresa, I'm with you on that.
Me too.
Yeah.
And there are students who are primarily benefiting.
And faculty and staff. And look, I think the segment 2 and the segment 1 are really very different. I've driven that road many, many, many times. I've never seen a bike. I often see bikes and walkers, as was mentioned, from the Parkway down to College Station. And that has the greatest potential for being made much safer, much more heavily used, and kind of making sense. The other segment, occasionally we'll see a walker. I don't remember ever seeing a biker. I'm sure there's been one. It has faster traffic, I think, and it might make more sense initially to have a sidewalk option there, or even to delay that until it makes more sense in terms of what's going on with Millage Road. The segment 2 seems like a very high priority as a multi-use path to me, which would be the safest alternative. It's also reasonably priced, segment 2 as a multi-use path. I think it was 2.3 or 2.4 million, which is a lot of money, but it's much less than it would be in that segment 1 path. In segment 2, there was more support. Segment 1, at least from, I think, the potential user community, segment 1 was where you were getting more pushback from the golf course and other folks there. So.
And Mark and the team here, if you guys would let me go through segment 2 comparison, that may add to the conversation, and we can get to the end and we can discuss further. But it's up to you. I can stop and listen to you guys. And yes, segment 2, it has a special terrain that it's challenging terrain at some point of it, and it's very easy terrain to work with. It depends on what area you're looking at. However, utilizing head walls starts early with alternative 2. We have to use walls. There's no way out. If we're going to put fill, the fill cost would be way more than the walls that we would utilize. And therefore, you would see the cost, not much difference between alternative 2 and 3, because we're already using walls at that concept or for that segment. Again, I don't want to go through the entire explanation of the color-coded comparison. If you have questions, please ask me here. Mainly is I tried to make a comparison and utilizing similar concepts between sidewalk and multi-use path. The burgundy color or red color represent less retaining walls used. The green represent heavily retaining walls used concepts. And I went over the explanation of those alternatives as well. The cost difference, you would see it's about $290,000 for a 7-foot sidewalk when compared to the 5-foot sidewalk, alternative 3. For a multi-use path with retaining walls used to limit impact, the increase would be about $521,000, as you see in the green field and concept number 7. Next slide. This is our program budget. This is what we have left after we build in the future, after we would have built Cherokee Road and Jefferson River Road. Anticipating that Jefferson River Road agenda right now went through agenda setting with recommendation to approve a multi-use path. Cherokee Road, if you recall, it was a commission-defined option that approved it as a multi-use path. As far as now, it is funded by this program, unless a TAD is actually funding that portion of the multi-use path. If not, then the pedestrian, I'm sorry, and then the bike facility will be funded through that, as mentioned in this CDO. For the pedestrian improvement program, this is the remaining fund is $7.9 million available to us. If we, and here we, I've used sidewalk alternative 3, segment 2. This is the, I don't want to call it recommendation from TPW. I used it as the most reasonable option that we see. However, it's your call, it's your vote tonight to decide what sidewalk or what multi-use alternative, and if it's going to be the entire alignment, or pick one of the 2 segments. Also, we wanted to show the budget that we have today for the remaining budget that we have today in the bike programs through the T-SPLOS 2018. And we currently have $2.78 million. So we want to be transparent with our available budget with you guys and with our elected officials to make sure that you guys making decisions based on factual information straight from the available budget. Riverbend Road, Athens in Motion project next steps. We have a public engagement lined up for this project in December for 2 weeks at least. T-SPLOS committee review will be in November 24th. I believe this date has changed recently, and I'll update that in our work session agenda. Concept approval agenda would be January 5th. And this is a little bit an overview of our projects where we are. We have 4 that went into concept development. We presented Cherokee, Jefferson, and now it's Riverbend Road. Next would be Barber Street. And we're looking at January work session. It might be earlier. We do have concepts. Not sure how much review we need to do or how much comments we have. I haven't had a chance to review them, but we have concepts on hand that we will go through them and prepare a presentation for that. So it could be as late as January 12th or before that, but that's the schedule we have for Barber Street.
Ronnie, I had a question,
yes,
a financing question, and
yes.
maybe this is an obvious answer to everyone else, but when you talk about that's a good slide to land on. The pedestrian improvement program clearly is for sidewalks. The bicycle improvement program is for multi-use paths, which serve pedestrians and bicycles. Is there ever any possibility of sharing funding between those 2 pots of money? Because clearly, these multi-use paths are serving at least as many pedestrians as they are, and are serving as a type of sidewalk, if you will.
So I'll give you an example on Jefferson River Road. The way the agenda is written today and the way the funding split is 50-50. So if we go, initially it was approval to go look at a sidewalk connectivity. And throughout that process, we realized that there is an appetite for multi-use path. We'll put a multi-use path concept together, alternatives, and that was picked over a sidewalk. The funding strategy at this point is 50-50. So let's just say pedestrian connectivity today on Riverbend Parkway goes to a multi-use path. We would recommend to continue with that 50-50 funding because it's become really messy for us to go with actual cost, knowing that they serve both, and therefore from an accounting perspective and from management perspective, it's easier to go with 50-50. Similar to Barber Street. Barber Street, it started with a 50-50 projection for participation for both programs, from the bicycle and the pedestrians programs to build the Barber Street multi-use path, which is yet to be approved. It is not approved. We're still in the concept development phase.
Right. Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a question. I know that it's hard to know right now, but and Hillary, you're on your way out, coming after Barber Street, or what could come as far as projects next?
We have not, and my guess would be and I'm going up the slides because I have it. These are the approved list to go for bicycle and pedestrian projects. We will have to look into our priorities again and look at the tier 1 projects. I know Stephen, and maybe Stephen can also address this question. We are looking at additional services by consultants to evaluate our network as we go and as things change, and make sure we take any road that was not initially in the Athens in Motion through a ranking process to make sure that we did not miss anything. But Stephen, you have anything to add, or even Hillary?
Sure. So the first thing to show off is really that we are almost all the way through. Once with these pedestrian projects get through the cycle, we're almost knocking out. We've done King Avenue, so that'll be all of them. That will be all of the first 5 kind of approved pedestrian projects through Athens in Motion. The bicycle projects are really what's kind of slowed down, just because we know Barber's going to be moving forward, but some of those other ones have been much harder to get through. So the Millage Avenue, of course, is one that Hillary's focused on, but knowing that that's a much bigger struggle to get through. Cedar Shoals was going to be one that we moved forward with, but it was going to be in tandem with paving. So again, some of these are timing issues, others are right-of-way issues, and of course, there's a cost issue with all of it too. But I'd say what would probably happen next after Barber Street is we need you all to reassess tier 1 pedestrian projects and look through to see if we have recommendations for the next few to come forward, because it looks like we will have additional pedestrian money to use. What I don't think is that we'll have any bicycle money past, either the if we decide on multi-use for some of these, Riverbend Road by itself could either take between $1 to $3 million of the bike money, so we could be emptied out of bicycle T-Splosh money by the end of this, or we could pick maybe one more project after this out of those kind of 4 remaining, and or even reevaluate the other tier 1 bikes at this point. There's nothing telling us that we have to move forward those 5. If we hit some roadblocks, we may just want to go back and look at the remaining tier 1. But Lauren, to your question, I'd say it kind of goes back to y'all's group to look back through tier 1 PED, and then it's on us at this point to see if there's any way we can move forward with those bike projects that have already been approved.
Thank you. I have some more to say, but I want to give others a chance to talk.
I just wanted Ronnie to go back to the next slide where that one there, in that explanation that you gave Mark about the 50-50 for the expenses coming from the pedestrian improvement bucket versus the bicycle improvement. But if we look up there for the Cherokee and Jefferson Road, it's actually less for the projected price here is $2,697,000, blah, 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 versus down here of $3 million. Am I missing something?
There is other encumbered cost for design. This is not just the concepts approved for Cherokee and Jefferson. In addition to the fact that Cherokee was approved with a commission-defined option, and the funding strategy does not meet the 50-50. The 50-50 started with our recommendations on Jefferson, and we're moving forward with it. We anticipate that TAD would be funding the bike portion on Cherokee, which is not a 50-50. It is the actual increased cost from what we were recommending to what the commission-defined option was proposed. And Stephen, you may help me here as well. I know there's maybe more.
Sure. So maybe to condense that, there's maybe about a $300,000 difference between what the PEDs are paying for PED T-Splosh is paying versus what bikes are paying. Well, I think what Ronnie's saying is the majority of that is because of a CDO that greater utilized bike funds.
Okay. And are those projects which were not those bike fund projects there for the Cherokee and the Jefferson River Road, will they then be like crossed off they're not tier 1 bike projects, but will they be sort of checked off wherever they are? Or maybe they are tier 1, but they're not in that first list. But that multi-use path is going to count for the bike infrastructure? And we're crossing that out? Is that true?
That's right.
Okay. And what's go to that next one where there's the remaining funds in the SPLOST project. Is that where we're at here? Okay.
Yeah, this is it.
All right.
And there is additional funds to be encumbered for some design services that's not shown in here, but this would not be in the million, numbers. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, couple, not much difference. This is just an approximate really number. The number change all the time, and
so you don't. If we approved a multi-use path option for Riverbend, that bottom number for the available money from the bike improvement program would be reduced. So anytime we're reducing that, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And from a recommendation perspective, we would not, if you go with sidewalk alternative number 4, which is a 7-foot sidewalk, we would not recommend funding any additional funds from bicycle improvement if that's what the mayor and commission would like to see, or if you guys would like to see that 7-foot sidewalk at one segment or the entire corridor. That's where that's our recommendation, but again, it just stands as recommendations.
And would the 7-foot sidewalk versus a multi-use path, would the material be different for what it was? Like, when you're on it, would it be asphalt versus concrete or whatever?
It's all concrete.
Okay.
And it's just going to be one slab, 7 foot wide, and with controlled joints every 5 feet. It's a typical
side
construction. Yes.
And the multi-use would just be wider without the
joints.
Design.
There would be, there is no longitudinal joint in the 10-foot width. It would be smooth surface. However, there will be controlled joints, saw cut it mainly at 5 feet intervals.
Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry. For a multi-use path, it wouldn't be continuous. It would be
for all concrete surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
There is a controlled joint every 5 feet at every 5 feet interval. For a multi-use path, we maintain that 10-foot width. We don't put a control joint in the center. Similar to greenways.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I have a series of basic questions.
Sure.
So when we talk about impact to property, in the past, like with Jefferson River Road, we are literally talking about reducing the size of people's front yards by putting a sidewalk, closer to their houses, or a multi-use path closer to their house. When we're talking about impact to the particular, for God's sake, be quiet. They pick this moment.
Yeah, go ahead. I think it's fine. Go ahead.
We had a very nefarious looking UP. So be quiet when we're talking about UGA properties. I mean, what's there is a large strip of green space before giant parking lots in every single case. So I'm wondering what the actual impact is in terms of, I guess it's future development. They'll have slightly less room if they want to build more buildings. Like, what is the concern with impact to property in the case of property that's being used like that?
we did not go that far with UGA, asking them specifically what their reasoning are or is. We just took it for face value, and we understood that they're not supportive of high impact, especially with the grading. They like the privacy. They like what's out there. There is the pecan farm, and there would be impact to the pecan trees. It's to them it's important, and we wanted to see what cost difference would it be if we add walls, and instead of a rural section, a curb and gutter with stormwater and a retaining wall along that portion of the sidewalk, or a multi-use path, and that's what we put together.
Okay. Where is the pecan farm?
Yeah, that's on segment 1. That's not on segment 2. That's segment 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I'm sorry, did you mention on segment 2?
I was thinking mainly of segment 2 because that's where
Okay.
all the big UGA buildings are.
On segment 2, if you notice, and I'll go back to the comparison slide, on segment 2, we're having to utilize walls almost regardless of impact. There is a very deep ravine that exceeds 20 feet in depth from the roadway elevation, and therefore we're having to use walls. So when we go to a multi-use path, the increase in cost is not that tremendous. And also, if we go with alternative 2 and then alternative 3 sidewalk, the cost doesn't increase that much as we are with a hybrid option to utilize either a rural or an urban shoulder, which an urban shoulder is a little bit more expensive because it concentrates stormwater. It has a curb and gutter in it, so these are additional construction items. But with us being wise and being able to use some of the rural section, we're able to save some money while we're still using a little bit more retaining walls.
So it's really striking to me, looking at option 2 versus 5, how small the difference is and how much more as a community we get for our transportation dollars. I think, if I understood correctly, you haven't actually gotten an official response from UGA about options 5 and 6. They just didn't like option 2. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I would, there's still, I think, a possibility that, given the greatly enhanced benefit to the university and to its university community of option 5 or even 6, that they may have a different, sort of benefit harm kind of analysis. I'm thinking optimistically here, but I'm an optimist. So.
But option 6 includes both a 10-foot multi-use path and it maintains the current bike lane. So that seems redundant to me.
I agree. Yeah. 5 seems like to me like a great option. A great option.
And with the university, do they sign on the line that they've given us $600,000?
It's $125,000 estimated cost that was discussed back in 2018. There is no memorandum of understanding. It was just administration talking on high level planning at the concept level. When we were putting Athens in Motion plans together, that's when that conversation started. And again, it's 600 feet for a cost estimated $125,000. Yes.
And that's sidewalk
Ronnie,
only, and that's between basically College Station and the science building on the right?
Yes, I think the second driveway on the right.
Yeah. So I guess the question is this: if there is a multi-use path or a sidewalk, I was understanding that it would be sort of on the southeastern side of the road. Is that correct, or is it on the other side?
It is on the eastern side of the road. You're right.
Yeah.
Eastern. Okay, sort of southeast kind of. Yeah. Okay.
Ronnie,
Because UGA is on the northwestern kind of side, so that's what I was trying to understand.
With this slide, segment 2, honestly, we did not get into much of a conversation with UGA about splitting this into 2 sections. So when it says not preferred by UGA, that might not be the case for this segment 2. Their biggest preference is not to encroach on their property in the section 1 area.
Oh, that's huge.
So,
that's a huge difference. Yeah.
So
That makes
while
sense.
while they did say that they'd like to keep, they've got some trees that kind of screen the CCRC. They've got some trees there that kind of screen the parking lot, but I don't think that was as big of a deal to them as the encroachment on the golf course or on the pecan farm.
Yeah, because the golf course entrance has a big fancy walls and not very good sight lines, and I could, that I'm not saying I support their opposition, but I'm saying it's more perhaps understandable why they might have opposition at that end.
You guys, if we're thinking about splitting in half, the no bike lane on one part and moving over to the multi-use paths, option 5 here, that does bother me a little bit, because I think that if you were coming from Millage, if I was traveling from Millage on a bike and using the bike lane to get across from Millage over to College Station, I'd be in the street, I wouldn't be on the sidewalk, and then I'd get to that little place and there'd be no bike lane, there'd be no shoulder. I mean, it's not much of a bike lane right now anyway. And I would need to go over to that multi-use trail for that 0.7, that 3,000 feet. And just in terms of safety, I'm not sure if cyclists who were using it would do that. And so for safety purposes, that kind of bothers me a little bit, taking away that space if it's not going to be continuous across the whole stretch.
So you're talking about the bike lane continuing, the option number 6 being preferred to option number 5?
I'm just saying that if we split it, like if we did the multi-use pass for this segment 2, but then did a sidewalk for segment 1, that way.
Like I said, I think there's very, very little cycle traffic right now between the Parkway and Millage, and there's a lot more potential the other direction. That's if we have limited funds, I'd rather spend just on segment 2 and maybe segment 1 later on at some time when it makes more sense.
But I agree with Carol. Just as a cyclist, it is not at all intuitive that you're going to then all of a sudden transition off the road in the middle of a road. You're going to keep traveling because all of a sudden you're running out of bike lane, and all of a sudden you're just now going with no bike lane. So I agree with Carol that about we shouldn't throw cyclists completely out of consideration on this.
And it's probably a more traveled
segment 2.
Right.
I don't know if we need to even worry about segment 1 at all.
That's what
But what I'm saying is, if you're on a bike and you're coming from Millage and you're on segment 1 and you're in the bike lane, and then you get to that intersection where it turns right to Riverbend Parkway, that you're going to, if you lose the bike lane completely, it just seems a little dangerous to me that we're making it more dangerous for cyclists right there.
Okay, so I disagree, but it presumes that there are cyclists going from Millage toward the park.
Yes, Mark, I've ridden it.
There are cyclists going there.
Yes, okay. Like I said,
I don't ride it.
Then I just have been driving down there the wrong times.
Yeah, well, people say that about College Station all the time, like there's no cyclists there. So, I just don't want to make it more dangerous for that cyclist who's going over there. So that's, my concern. Let's just make you go for the one with the bike lane and have UGA pay that cost difference of $942,000, so that we won't hurt their. They can get the retaining wall they want.
And Carol, or Ronnie or Hillary, do either of you have anything to speak to as far as maybe some transitional infrastructure that could be at that intersection? So note that it is a stop sign there when you get to Riverbend Parkway. So is there any kind of transitional infrastructure, like a green line that leads, or a green bike path that leads people to that multi-use?
So I'm going to talk about removing bike lanes for a second with no transitions, and it's not a great thing to do. There are things you can do at that intersection, but that intersection has to be very carefully redesigned to accommodate bicyclists, and bicyclists have to be willing to make those transitions that are sometimes not convenient to them. And more than likely, they're not going to do those transitions. They're just going to go straight down the road in the 11-foot lane that's left. As far as the option where you take away the bike lane, that only makes sense if you are going to do it from a signalized intersection to another signalized intersection, because that's really the best transition point for bicyclists to move on either side of the road. If you could, there are things you can definitely do, but in general, I would say, and this is something in Austin that I learned from the bike planners there, they were always a bigger fan of building the multi-use path while maintaining that existing bike lane, because bicyclists should have choice. If there are a lot of pedestrians on a multi-use path, I live off the Beltline, and it's not to say that, you know, we're at anywhere near Beltline status yet, but the traffic volume on the Beltline makes it really difficult to bike. I mean, it's not on a weekend, it's extremely difficult to weave in and out. And a lot of bicyclists just they're not going to want to do that. So if you have that space available already in your pavement so that a bicyclist can make a choice, that's usually preferable. But I do understand the cost savings as well. And that's why this is a interesting conversation to have. Yes, there are things we can do. Would I necessarily recommend taking away the 5-foot bike lane? Probably not, but that's really why you guys have this kind of conversation happening.
Well, why not? I mean, why not go with that weird 7-foot sidewalk then? And if the only thing different is the seams in the concrete, and you're wanting it to be wider because of all the sidewalk traffic, that multi-use trail is only going to be 3,000 feet. So it's not
I
like
would not recommend a 7-foot sidewalk, only because you're not that. I'm not surely full. I understand why that was created, but the 5-foot sidewalk is fine for pedestrians. If you're going to include bicyclists on your behind the curb, it needs to be 10 feet.
Okay, that's why you have that for the
sort of a redheaded stepchild of the design kind of process.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and give it, you know, not like you guys need more options here, but what you guys have is an opportunity to take a look at an entire segment and connectivity. And while you may put a lot of emphasis on one segment, you also have the option of defining what can be done to the other segment that we're not anticipating major design upgrade, adding a connectivity to it. There is bike lanes that starts at the railroad tracks and go all the way to Riverbend Parkway, but there is no bike lanes between the railroad track back to Millage. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic from the first driveway at that apartment complex on right after the tracks and back to Millage. There is maybe little traffic between that location all the way to Riverbend Parkway, adjacent to the UGA golf course and the transit facility. So there, you have the option of exploring beyond what we are presenting to you today, but we don't want to direct your conversation as much as we want to inform you. And one last piece of information, Riverbend Road is marked or is identified about 3 years ago in our deficit list of roads to be paved. And we deferred the pavement because we're looking at a sidewalk. And also we were directed to go and take a look at a multi-use path. So we have not considered paving Riverbend Road. However, the fact that we are looking at paving Riverbend Road and more likely will go through a process similar to what we did on Lumpkin this year, with added bike facilities, there's an opportunity here. We can increase the bike lanes by 2 feet along the entire corridor, provide bike facilities along the entire corridor, and focus on segment 2 to provide pedestrian connectivity. It could be done the cost estimate is not really laid out in a way to be presented to you today. That was not part of what we assigned our consultants to provide, but we can definitely open the conversation for that and say, while you focus on segment 2 for pedestrian connectivity, you can always enhance bike facility on the other segment, even though it wasn't a bike facility. But again, I don't want to steer your conversation. This may not be a point you want to talk about today, but I just want to bring that up to you.
Not feeling steered at all. Not feeling steered at all. I have been convinced, though, about the transition issue. Carol and Aaron, that you're supportive. I do, see that and know that's exactly how I would behave if I was on a bike.
Yeah,
I like the idea of enhancing the bike lanes and making them wider. I like the idea of maybe a focused pedestrian segment from roughly those millage to where those apartments are, but not even get, just past the railroad tracks, and making that safer for pedestrians. I think those are, really priorities.
Well, I'm I've been actually talking way too much here. But I'm kind of leaning towards the sidewalk now, and I do want to get other people involved in here. It's already 5:18. I thought this was going to be the short meeting. But Craig or Roswell, do you guys have anything to say? And Lauren, I know you said you had some other things you wanted to bring up.
I'm interested on, this is Roswell, by the way. I'm interested on getting an up-to-date perspective from some of my colleagues at UGA in the architect's office or other places. I've already reached out to them via email so that we can have a conversation. I'm concerned that some of the dialogue was in 2018 around the funding piece, and I just want to make sure we have a complete picture of UGA's perspective and why. So just me personally, I want that, and so that's something I've already trying to coordinate. So yeah.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Craig?
Intently to all the conversation and appreciate it. And I'm just following along to try to defer as more pieces come together in terms of how this functions, how this works well within the community, the different nuances between UGA interest and Athens interest. So it's lots of sensible rationales being offered. So I appreciate that.
Lauren, I'm going to get it.
Yes. So I'm of a couple minds about this. When I look at the costs of this, there's some parts that I want to. I'm getting some noise interference. Can everyone mute? Hold on a second. Okay, sorry, I also have some little kids at the door, some random little kids. So when I look at the cost of all this, there's a part of me say, you know what, this is really eating way too much into our budget. This was originally going to cost $900,000 on the high end. And it's just, even on the low side, it's really expensive. And I'm disappointed that UGA is not willing to be more of a partner in this. And so I almost want to say, UGA, submit a project for T-Splosh 2023. Because it's a tier 1 project, it's really important, but we have 35 other tier 1 projects. However, if we look at what we have left from T-Splosh 2018, and we think of these first 5 sidewalk projects as coming from that budget, from being used to fund those, then we may as well spend the money, because what else do we have ready? Staff has spent a lot of time on this, and Ronnie and Hillary, thank you. You've gone forward and you've presented many options for us. So what I think we should do is go with the sidewalk option. Keep it, minimally priced, but I want to keep it consistent from segment 1 to segment 2. Okay, fine, UGA, we're going to build a sidewalk. I'm really encouraged by this idea of what we can do with repaving, especially after seeing what's being done on Lumpkin. I think that's a great job. I shared Hillary's enthusiasm for that project last time she presented it, and I get to see it. So I'm really excited with the potential there. So I think we should do sidewalk, some kind of sidewalk the whole way, and think about bike lane improvements with repaving.
I agree with everything you just said, Lauren. Thank you for that.
I agree as well. Yeah, just because as much as I love multi-use paths for cyclists, they're not always great because then you have more conflicts with intersections too, because they're set back and cars don't stop for multi-use paths like they do for intersections with other cars. So yeah.
Yeah.
James, do you have any input here? I haven't heard from you.
I said a few things.
Okay.
I'm still weighing the options, and I think my opinion is leaning towards sidewalking and retaining the existing bike lanes. And I was kind of convinced by you and Aaron on the, retaining bike lanes makes a lot of sense and not using a multi-path, especially if we're going to segment this out. When I walked this segment as part of the audit, I was mostly convinced that segment 2 was a pretty dangerous area. Like it's a really dangerous situation for pedestrians. You have a lot of pedestrians walking in mud, and you could see where a pedestrian would be driven onto the road in a lot of places. It's not comfortable to walk at all. So I don't think that we should push this along. I think it really needs to be addressed because I think it is very dangerous. It's scary to walk on this thing. And I haven't biked it, but I would say it's probably scary to bike on it as well with the existing bike lanes. So I think bike lane improvement with a sidewalk. I think my mind is still of just focusing on segment 2 though, and not all the way down the road. I just don't think it makes sense to build a sidewalk all the way up to Millage on the other side.
Yeah, I'm with James in terms of the sidewalk from Parkway to the railroad tracks, at least, or to the apartment near there. I think that would get very minimal use, and you would have more conflict with those UGA properties along there. I think I'm trying to think of the use case in terms of would people really be walking from the apartments on the Parkway down to Millage and then down Millage. It just seems like a very limited use case. They're not going to walk to the golf course. They're not going to walk from apartment 1 to apartment 2. So whereas there's a strong use case for going from those apartments to the research buildings on the park on Riverbend and to the main campus, it just seems like they're two completely different issues. And the money would be, I would rather spend that money instead of on segment 1, spending it on some other project, some other tier 1 project somewhere else.
Ronnie, can we see segment 1 slide? And y'all, do we remember if there's a sidewalk under the loop on Millage Avenue between that shopping center, Macon Highway, and Riverbend Parkway?
There is a sidewalk there. Yeah.
There's rocks there. Yeah.
So there's a shopping center there. There's a place where people buy groceries.
But we're talking about not walking from right near Millage, but we're talking all the way from the apartments on Parkway. It would be about a mile and a half, 2 miles. It just seems unlikely that students would walk that far. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that seems optimistic. That seems an Italian or Irish level of walking, not a UGA level of walking.
I hear you. I guess I want to have that connectivity. I just feel like that's what Athens in Motion is about, is like being complete, is trying to fill in some of our network.
And there are houses on that segment.
There are 5 houses. There are 5 houses, and they, serve maybe with 20 students, and we're talking $2 to $4 million.
Are there undeveloped properties on that segment?
I don't know.
That could be zoned for apartments or for multifamily? Or
the right side is pretty big. The north side is pretty narrow. The south side is mostly UGA property, right? It's a transportation. It's the pecan farm. It's the golf course. So it's UGA property. Now, if UGA develops that property as their next campus or something, or if they, then it would make a ton of sense. Or But again, I'm all with you about connectivity, but there's lots of places in town where we need connectivity that would see, I think, much greater use and serve communities that need it and would, I think, make better use of it.
I would, am I on here? I would say I'm looking at the pulling up my phone map, and there is an entrance right in there on Lakeside Drive to a whole apartment complex that is its only entrance is on Riverbend Road.
By the railroad tracks, you mean?
I don't know. I'm just looking
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah, that's the one that I think would be great to have good sidewalk to Millage so people can get safely from those apartments. It's between basically the railroad tracks and the golf course entrance, right?
Yeah.
That I'm all for supporting. That's the segment that really needs better safety, a sidewalk, better, bike safety, better crossing of the railroad, all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It's just that segment from there to Riverbend Parkway that it's just hard to imagine much of a use case for that. And that's a long segment. That's 3,000-ish feet probably or more. That would cost, a lot of money for, I think, very limited benefit.
I am counting off that between that apartment and Riverbend, at least 11 homes. But I know it's not a lot. But I'm wondering if we're, if we need a sidewalk from Millage to the Lakeside apartments there, then maybe we should just complete the whole thing. I mean, I know what you're saying. It's not a lot of use, but that's,
or maybe partway, or maybe go a little further past the golf course to where those houses are. Those houses are fairly close across the street from the golf course. If you really think those houses would be, heavy users of walkable, then, but again,
I don't want, I'm kind of with Lauren. I don't really want to create a gap there. I mean, it's like then we're building a gap. I can just hear it just doesn't make sense logically with what our whole mission is here. In a lot of ways, I go out on College Station and I walk down to Riverbend, and you want to get rid of a gap, we get rid of that one too. There's not many people there.
Yeah.
So it just I don't know. Well, how much is the one on
like connecting it all?
Okay, well, that's one less project we get to do. That's another tier one we don't do. There's always a
I know, but I mean, yeah.
It's incredibly expensive and not supported by UGA.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like they want us up there anyway. They don't want any sidewalks up there because we're going to encroach on their pecan farms and golf course.
Can we see the segment 1 slide? Whoa. Well, only give them the segment 2. Give them the 1. Yeah, I can see that. Let's give them get the 2 with limited use of walls not preferred by UGA.
Yeah, let's. Do we have to vote today, or should we? Staff, what do you need from us? Do we have to vote today?
Most of the limited use was for the segment 1. That's where the problem was.
Yeah.
And remember, I mean, when UGA have expressed interest in building that sidewalk that within segment 2 and supported alternative number 3, just to be clear on where we stand, that 600 feet with $125,000 support from UGA is within that segment 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was specific to segment 2.
Yeah, yes, it's from College Station back to the greenhouses entrance. Yes.
Yeah, so the cost is about the same. Okay.
So I know that's a lot of information, and so we could certainly give you all some time to, we don't necessarily have to vote tonight. It would delay the agenda, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That could also mean that Carol's on the commission next when this agenda goes through, and she can help explain it to the rest of the group. So that can be under consideration as well.
Which I could say actually might be helpful, because at this point I was going to suggest that anytime that we're suggesting a sidewalk, we need to make a long explanation of why we're not putting the multi-use path there, because that seems to be the default among the commissioners.
Yeah.
And the other factor is, as Roswell said, we would like to know where UGA stands on it now, because a lot changes at UGA over 2 years, especially given the current budget situation at UGA, which is not great, despite what people think. So it would be good to have that information as well, and an actual discussion to get their take on the rest of these options, if only to, understand a little bit better where they're coming from, I guess.
I mean, should we go ahead and, sounds like we could possibly come to some agreement on segment 2. It's segment 1 where we probably need more information. Is that fair? Or would that be helpful to come to make a recommendation about 2 so we can kind of focus more on 1? I don't know.
I'd like to hear more from the university before we, spend too much time promoting anything. I mean, I would like to see us take advantage of the repaving for Riverbend Road and go ahead and beef up those bike lanes. And that's going to go from end to end, correct?
Yes.
So can I make a motion that we recommend that Transportation and Public Works put Riverbend Road on the schedule, and in that process improve the bike lanes?
So they're waiting. I think they're waiting on us to make a decision about this, about the rest of this, before we can do that, right?
Why don't we decide to make the bike lanes, just to keep those bike lanes that are there and improve them?
Teresa.
Yeah.
Hillary.
So pavement is a completely different process. What you guys are voting on would not impact the pavement schedule. So I just want to emphasize that you could recommend that we look at improving the bike lanes when it comes up for repavement, not that we are doing that next summer.
That's what I was trying to say, but I didn't have the correct language. So thank you for that. I mean, I think that we ought to say, yes, we think that this should be pursued. We like this. We don't want to take away the bike lanes ever.
Okay, as chair, and the fact that it's 5:35 right now, I think we also have public input coming in on this. We have Roswell has reached out, and I think that we should postpone voting on this for another month till we get some more information on it. And that's what I'm proposing. If anyone would like to make a motion, I think we're going to have to put something together in the end for this. That's a complete thing, complete proposal to the commissioners. So if any of you'd like to make that motion.
I will make that motion that we delay voting on anything right now until we have yeah.
And just Stephen or Hillary, you may help me with this one as well. We probably will not start the public input unless we go to a work session, and we would not go to a work session unless we have a vote from Athens in motion. Is that the process, or would that change?
Correct.
True.
Yeah,
okay.
So we push everything out.
Okay.
that same time period.
Okay.
Well, then let's just wait till we get that input from
UGA.
as well. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Ron, could you send us this presentation?
Yes.
Yes. So, Teresa made that motion, or no, Lauren made that motion. Do we have a second? Can we?
I already seconded it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's have a motion. All in favor of postponing this for a month, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any nays? Okay, we got it. And Jake, if I might ask you, because I know you're going to be eager to get this together in the minutes. This might be a really good one. Like we make sure we get this a little bit earlier so we can review this, because I have to.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, let's move on to the next. Close this out. Is that okay? Everything okay with you, Ronnie and Hillary, on this, and Stephen?
Yes, so it's okay with me. Thank you, Hillary, and best of luck. I know this is your last meeting, so thank you.
Yeah.
With us.
Ronnie.
You'll be missed.
Okay.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Good.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Okay, now we'll and I had this down, we were going to get this done in 20 minutes. Oh,
That's insane.
Well, the last one we did pretty well, quickly.
It's
Okay.
good discussion. I thought.
Yes. Yes. And all those people who are listening to this on YouTube while they're exercising, I'm sure they've enjoyed it as well. Okay, so we're moving on then to the bike pedestrian coordinator update, Hillary.
All right, so first I'm going to let Todd Miller at Leisure Services. He has some updates for you guys. In general, we'll just use this as like staff update time. So I know Todd's been on here for a while, so let me open up his PowerPoint and then he can talk you through some Leisure Services stuff.
Thanks for sticking around, Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.
No problem. All right, I just quickly go through some of the things that are going on as far as Greenway and Firefly Trail. We had our ribbon cutting for the Winterville Firefly segment I guess about 2 weeks ago. Pretty successful, and it was kind of fun, and it was invitation only, just to kind of keep our number of people down to less than 50. So anyway, and then Firefly Trail Phase 2, the clearing is done, and they're beginning to do the dirt work for the bridge that will eventually go over the on-ramp for the loop, is what they're working on right now. The Greenway Network Plan, we're doing a map update. We'll have public input. Tentatively, we have it scheduled for November 10th and 12th online. One will be like a daytime event, and the other one will be an evening event. And then we'll have an in-person event as well at the Athens Farmers Market on November 14th. So it'll be like, typical 9 to 12 in the mornings if you want to come see the boards in person and provide comment. And then online comment will run into about mid-November. And then if you'll go to the next page, Hillary. And then the Greenway Trail expansion, the Coney Hills Cemetery segment, bids are due November 5th for that segment. So hopefully we get some good numbers on that, and can get that started sometime beginning early next year. And then the Firefly Trail Bridge over Trail Creek, the bids came in, and they were quite high because of the COVID has really impacted the wood industry, and then the hurricanes have heavily impacted. Basically the bridge is made out of telephone poles, and so it's heavily impacted those, and so our costs are a little high. So we're in the discussions with the apparent low bidder to look and see if there's some ways to potentially bring that price down a little bit, and then we'll present that to mayor and commission. So that's kind of an update of where we are on our project. So
The Coney Hill Cemetery segment, will that go all the way along the river, or is that just a short segment?
correct. It goes all along the river. Basically, the sketch that you see is the bridge that's inside the cemetery. It's hard to see it, but if you zoom in, you can see the gazebo that's there. And so basically, we go under that bridge, and so it will be a complete segment from Easley Mill to the Greenway down on East Campus.
Wow, fantastic. Long time coming.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Todd.
All right, thank you, Hillary.
Oh, thank you, Todd.
All right, so the biggest update is, so this is my last meeting with all of you. So, so Stephen will be your primary contact while I'm gone, because Stephen is the Assistant Director of Public Works. The frequency of responses will be lower, presumably. And so your regular meeting shouldn't be an issue. I think the November, maybe Stephen could talk more about the staff capabilities of your November, December meeting, but I think the December one was the only one that might have had an issue, but I think November was fine.
No, those are fine. When is the December one scheduled for?
Right now, I think it's during Christmas, so I think they're going to talk about changing the date.
Okay. Yeah, I probably won't be there Christmas week.
I'm down for a Christmas meeting.
But other than that, it was great working with all of you. Athens is in great hands. Y'all are doing great. Your conversation today was amazing. It's always so nice to hear all of you debate in a way that I would have debated as well. And I think you guys are doing a great job. So I will send you all my personal email and my personal cell, so feel free to text me. And yeah, it's been great working with all of you.
Hillary, we are devastated. I think we said that before.
Thank you, Hillary.
Just so you know. But
Thank you.
best of luck.
We will miss you, Hillary. Thank you so much for everything.
I think Lauren's crying a little.
I kind of am.
Hillary, you're definitely an amazing resource. You've been awesome for us.
Yeah, you've been awesome. You'll probably be wanting to listen to all these meetings on YouTube now, though. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, yeah, I'll be watching and texting probably.
Hillary, I hope you have some colleagues you can encourage to apply for the position when it becomes available.
Stephen, when is the timeline as of today for getting this online?
So as you may or may not know, we are in a hiring freeze as a county. And so we have to fill out exception forms and put down justification anytime we try and hire someone inside of 120 days of vacating a position. So we have done that at this point. We have sent it over to HR, and I have voiced my justification to the manager's office. I think this will be one that they approve, and they know the priority here. Even if they don't, we can still hire as early as December 15th. But because we actually vacated Hillary's full-time position back in August, and she's been working part-time since then. So the latest would, as long as we get a good set of candidates and we can get through the interview process, I would imagine it's December 15th at the latest, which means you only have to deal with me bumbling through this for another, month and a half. But it could be even sooner than that, depending on their answer.
Okay, that's not bad at all. At UGA, when we have hiring freezes, it's exceptions have to go to the Board of Regents. So that's much better.
Right.
Or if you're unlucky enough to be caught right when someone leaves when COVID starts, that position just gets eliminated and you have 2/3 of an office for the rest of time. I mean, that hasn't happened to anyone I know, but.
Thank you, Hillary. Are we moving on to our next point?
I guess.
Okay. You're not going away yet. You can't go till the end of the meeting. So my chair update actually is just really about me leaving as much as anything. We have a meeting on November 24th, which is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I'd like us to continue to meet then. We, of course, now have to go back and discuss Riverbend. I'm also going to, well, actually, I'll either make it for this November or December, but we're supposed to, in our bylaws, have an annual meeting and an annual report, which I'd like to kind of pull together as a wrap up. So I'm going to, take all of those minutes and write some things up. Jake's done such a good job with that so that we have a summary. And I've asked Teresa to put together some budget numbers for a request for next year for communication and education as well. And so I'm thinking that I'm going to call this annual meeting for the end of November. But I may end up delaying that till December. My daughter is, I thought she'd be having a baby at the end of November, and she is like giving birth as we speak, 3 weeks early. And so I'm going to be going up there sooner. Everything's fine, at least I hope so. But that might affect my ability to do some of this. So anyway, that's my my announcement there. I did look in the bylaws in terms of what happens when there's a replacement, and I was going to reach out to Gene Spratland, but I'm going to wait a little bit on that to when I decide on the there being a replacement, an empty position. It'll go to the mayor and commissioner, and they'll fill someone in. It also says in terms of the vice chair will perform such duties that are generally before, in the event of the vacancy of the chair or at his or her request, that vice chair, Lauren, shall have the authority to perform the duties of the chair. And then I assume in January, when you get another person, if you want to have an election, I'll let you figure that out on that. But I know you'd be great at it. And I think that's basically all I have here. So I'm going to pass it on to Teresa for the project addition revision process update.
Okay, so I emailed everyone a bunch of stuff today. And would you all like me to share the screen? Is there a thumbs up for sharing the screen?
Please.
Okay, so just hang in with me for 1 second. Good. Sorry about this, guys. All right.
Carol, I think you were trying to say something, but you were muted.
Oh, hold on a minute.
Oh, yeah. I was saying that while Teresa shares the screen, she's going to be showing you this. We spent an hour this morning working on this, and we were looking for a vote. It is 5:50. So if anyone is looking at this and wants us to spend a considerable amount of time discussing it, I think we probably can move that to another meeting as well. And bring that up right away so we don't spend a lot of time discussing it.
I think it's great, and I'm willing to make a motion that we vote on it and accept it as is.
Well, how about letting me show it to y'all before we go that far, because I think we should just be clear about this. But basically, here's the flow chart. So we start with the plan as we know and love it. A triggering event might happen, such as new school or park, new housing, new connectivity or safety problem, new infrastructure, etc. Changes to the plan may be requested by mayor and commission, a single district commissioner, ACC, transportation, public works staff, citizens, or one of us AIM commissioners. So somebody says they want to change the plan, and it ends up going to the bike pedestrian coordinator, who no longer has a name. And then that person will just let us know about it in the monthly report. And then at some point, we'll get more details on what it involves, and we'll vote on the changes to the plan, and anything that we are not going to take on, then we'll just send a response out to whoever asked for it. And anything that we think should be included in the plan, then there would be a more formal presentation by the PED coordinator to the mayor and commission. And then the mayor and commission would would vote on that, and then the plan would be revised. And I think that's pretty much the same as we had it last time. So, oh, sorry, I showed you the wrong chart. The only difference here is that we have a little thing here that says when we adopted this. Okay, so if somebody wants to, make a motion that we approve this process flow, that would be super.
This is really clear. I love this chart, Teresa. Thank you for creating this. So I want to make a motion that we adopt this.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, any discussion? No, I guess we did that already. Okay, anyone, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, all accepted. Passed unanimously.
Okay.
Sorry, I just realized that the reason I didn't think we need to talk about it is I just listened to the whole recording yesterday. So it's really fresh in my mind.
Well, anyway, it's fresh in my mind too, and Carol's also, but for everybody else, I think we need to go ahead and just talk about it a little bit. Let's see. And I got to find, where is that dumb thing?
Right here.
I'm looking for something else now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So this is great. This was a big thing that we wanted to do this year, right? Come up with a plan.
Yep.
Yes. We did something with COVID.
We did something. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm having a little dysfunction at the moment, but let me see if I can find it on my computer here.
And not only did we come up with the plan, we came up with a plan to make a plan because we didn't realize we needed a plan until we started talking about it. So double kudos to us.
Let's see if this is it here. All right. No, this is not it. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm just not able to find the one. Let's see.
Teresa, I have it on my screen.
Okay, can you put text on because I'm just having a dysfunctional moment here. So let me unshare. If I can figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Back at the top.
Stop sharing. Good. Sorry.
Yeah, this is what it is. I guess I'm not figuring out the right. We're just going to go with my screen. So I don't go into that.
Okay.
Here it is.
If you just scroll all the way to the bottom, and then I'll be sure it's the correct document we're looking at. Yes. Okay. Good. All right. So, so Carol and I spent some time this morning going over the process. We want to make sure that the text matches up with the picture, and it does. So we are aware that Tool Design Group is going to be providing us with the priority scoring methodology that we can use. So that will allow us to be fair in how we change the schedule around if we change it. So basically, I sent this to you all earlier. I hope you had a chance to look it over. But let's assume that it's going to work for us, and let's have a motion to adopt this process to go along with the flow chart. And we can always amend it later if we discover we need to amend it.
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of approving this process?
Aye.
Aye.
All any nays? Okay, unanimously passed. Great, wonderful, Teresa and all of us. All right. All right, just moving on really quickly. Gosh, this is taking a long time. I guess I should get ready for long meetings, huh? We're moving on to the grants and data committee. If someone would like to give an update on there.
Yeah, sure. I did send around a report to everybody. And of course, my dogs decided to start barking now. Channeling Jake here. But since it around to everybody, in short, we have been kind of striking out in terms of identifying funding opportunities. Quiet. We've been striking out in terms of identifying funding opportunities. I have not heard back yet from the hospital in Kaiser Permanente. But we are making progress in terms of support from leisure services and interest, and also in terms of the Firefly Trail. And so I think we have to try to build some of those partnerships. There was also a contact at Tracy Sanchez, who's the tourism director at Georgia Department of Economic Development. She was recommended as somebody to reach out to who might have ideas in terms of funding sources. And so we are about to do that. And I think John Kissane is going to introduce us. I shared also as part of that report a screenshot that Jake, thinking quickly, grabbed from when Dan Sizemore was presenting, but it shows you some of the graphical elements that they're thinking about, because they've been thinking about a lot of wayfinding on the various trails, but don't have it budgeted for what we're thinking about, which is how do you get to the trails and how do you learn about the trails. And I think it has a dual purpose of not only making people more aware that they actually exist. I think there was a comment in one of the emails that there was a bunch of realtors in a meeting and none of them knew what Dudley Park was, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lack of knowledge among people who live in the community and or who are transient to the community. So it'll make them aware and also help them get there safely. So I think we're going to still be moving forward with that. The pricing of signs is shown there. It's actually not bad. You can knock out about a dozen signs for $600. We're planning on attaching them to existing signage. So it might be added to an existing signpost, something other than a stop sign where you apparently can't do it. That's all I had. I know we're running late.
Tracy Sanchez is great. She used to live in Athens and was on the Bike Athens board for a while. So she's definitely, I think, sympathetic to Athens transportation issues.
Great news. Yeah, we'll be reaching out to her and go from there.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Moving on to Lauren. Oh, yes.
Okay, yes. So the Policy and Projects Committee, as we said last time, has been getting back into complete streets. Has spent a ton of time. We basically, I don't want to say we started all over, but we kind of looked at it with fresh eyes, and Carol spent a lot of time reviewing existing, winning, effective complete streets policies. And so it's a thing of beauty. We're spending a lot of time on it. It now has 9 sections, and Teresa has been in there providing some feedback on wording. And then we've all looked at it. And so what we're trying to do right now as a committee is go through it section by section. So there's 9 sections. We've gone through the first 3. There's a section on equity that we want to get the Office of Inclusion involved in. So we are moving full speed ahead. And
we got extensive input from Hillary, which, was very helpful. We worked with.
Yes, Hillary was a big help. Also, Elliot with Georgia Bikes has been helping us understand the landscape and how Athens-Clarke County's setup compares. Us trying to incorporate needing to incorporate other departments and what it looks like from their perspective. So there's a lot to consider. There's a lot.
I'm just going to. I want to add one thing really quick, Lauren. As much for the minutes as for anything else and I can't remember where I was on this a month ago, but as a new commissioner, I was accepted to the Champions Institute, which is working with 20 mayors and commissioners across the country, and it's a real focus on complete streets. So one of I might be able to get input from that. This is all the national leaders with the Complete Streets Coalition and Smart Growth, and funded with money from the CDC on Active People, Healthy Notion. Anyway, I just wanted, I'll be able to add that insight to what we put together. Lauren, do we want to move on to the Education Committee?
Sure, why not? Okay, so this is going to tie into what Mark was just talking about. So I'm going to start with the budget. Oh, sorry, my dog is hungry and he's telling me I'm forgetting to feed him. So the reason I'm spastic over here is because I'm being attacked. Okay, where'd it go? Where's that budget? Oh, no, never mind. Sorry, guys, I'm just like having an issue here.
Long day.
I found it. Yay. So, all right. Am I sharing yet? No. So I need to share. I'm going to share this one. Okay. I wish I could shrink this thing. Okay. So here's the, here's what I put together. Just seated the pants today after talking to Carol. So we have roughly $10,000 or $12,000 that we can get to help us.
Let's just make it clarify that we're proposing to get.
Proposing to get.
Okay, I was about to say we have money.
Well, see,
yeah.
just give me an inch and I'll take a mile. Okay, so some of the things that Mark was talking about need to be funded, and obviously there are limited sources of funds, but they can all be rolled into this budget. So we can do advertising. We can do a full page ad in Flagpole. We could advertise in red and black. We certainly can advertise on Facebook and other social media. We can do radio public service announcements. We can even do billboards. Now that $500 for the billboard is just a setup fee. Lamar will do a free billboard for us for a limited period of time in a vacant billboard location, so it's not perfect. But that's $500. One thing we do need help with is graphic design and copywriting, because that's a special skill. You know, I could fake it, but I don't think I'm all that great at it. So it'd be great to have someone who knew how to do that correctly. Another thing is we really need mapping. And Mark, you were referencing some maps, I believe, in your handout. We need to have we need our AIM project mapped. We need it both printed and we need it online so that, you know, we can actually drill down and see the details of where things are and where they're going to go and how it's all going to fit together. And we had that map in the middle of our Athens in Motion plan, but it never got corrected as far as I'm aware. So that would be a great thing to have. So for doing our open streets events and things like that, T-shirts, everybody likes T-shirts. We can do safety vests. I found a website where you can buy a whole bunch of them for cheap. Stickers.
I would love a safety vest. I'm just saying that. I would love an Athens in Motion safety vest for my bike.
Athens in Motion safety vest. We need stickers. So anyway, so this all adds up to $12,000. Okay, so here's the proposed budget that we could use as a starting point. So Carol, we can talk about it, or you can say it's fine for now, or however you want to do it.
I think we should just put it out there for some feedback. We could send that out amongst ourselves and see if there's anyone else in other committees who need it, and maybe make some adjustments to this as well. So this is a great starting space.
This is a start. Okay, so if I didn't already send it to you, I will send it to you. I think I already did, but I don't know what I do anymore. Okay, so then
Open street.
Oh, I'm not quite there yet. So then I also had some fun. I was just having fun with spreadsheets. So I created kind of a little strategy for communication. So that we have different audiences. We've got the drivers, we've got pedestrians, we've got bicyclists, we've got mayor and commission, and sort of assumed in all of that is just the general public because they're going to see it one way or another. But we've got lots of different ways to get the message out, but first we have to know what the message is. So I kind of sketched out some different types of messages, like drivers, drive the speed limit, yield the bicycles, et cetera, et cetera. Pedestrians, assume that you're invisible, use the crosswalks, be visible, blah, blah, blah. Bicyclists, obey those traffic laws, always wear your helmet. For the mayor and commission, it's a different kind of message. And we want to help them understand what the purpose of our plan is and why they should pay attention to it and adhere to it as much as possible. And so there are different ways that we can do this. We got physical media, which is signs, billboards, T-shirts, things like that. We've got interactive, which would be like if we had the police to help us out doing some, kind of random pop-ups, where they would say like, hey, you over there, you really should be wearing a helmet, or, jaywalking is dangerous. Here's the crosswalk, or, being a little bit more present for some of these friendly kind of things. We also have open streets events where we can reinforce some of these things. That's interactive. Then we have social media, like, we all know what that is. And then print and broadcast media, which I mentioned before. So we would have, like the radio announcements, we'd have press releases, we'd have, other communications like that. So this is basically just kind of a first draft of a communication strategy for us, and it goes along with our budget. And so we'll refine this as we go along. I do want to set up another meeting of our communications team. So anyway, so that's that. And anybody have any questions, comments, slings and arrows?
Great work.
Yeah, this is great. I feel bad that we are having to rush through our committee reports because I'm just so interested in what you all are doing.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, we will have more meetings on this topic. So,
if I may, Carol and Teresa, just briefly, as you mentioned pop-ups, those are with police involvement. One thing that Hillary had mentioned and encouraged was the idea of pop-up projects, and I wonder how they fit within potentially a communication strategy. As if we mentioned the Barnett Shoals, I think, area where there was sort of a project that was undertaken. It gained some traction. There was some communication about it around the city. So, where might we do some pop-up projects for initiatives that we may have that could maybe fit within that that subgroup's agenda?
Good idea.
yes. So we add, pop-up demonstration projects and things like that to this as well. So I will do that.
Our dogs are busy here.
I'm
They're very angry at
They're
us.
hungry. They want to get fed, like me.
Teresa, did you have anything else to add?
That's pretty much it. I mean, I have made some outreach to, various media organizations, and I have a great big gigantic spreadsheet that I'm keeping my notes in. But, until we have, refined our strategy and our messaging, I don't really want to spend a lot of time on that.
And I'm just going to mention that we did also, Teresa and I participated in an open streets event. We didn't do the event, planning session with Leisure Services and Bike Athens and Envision Athens, and so we'll report back on that as well. So that looks like there's a chance of that really something happening next spring, like a COVID safe open streets event. So that's great. That's great. Now the other thing I didn't want to mention, and I'll throw this out, Jake, we can follow up with it last time, but I forgot to mention, Jake had brought up the idea and I had put it under my chair report of doing something for MLK with Bike Athens. They don't have any ideas, and maybe we could put something out there. I was just off the top of my head, I don't know if this would play into the MLK Day of Service ideas, but I wonder if there's anything we could do as a bike lane cleanup. Like, I know there's a couple of places going down on some of our bike lanes where there's grass, sand, and things like that, and I don't even know if that's an option, but anyway, we'll send something out on that if anyone has ideas for that.
Yeah, the deadline for registering is November 18th, although I think they extend that every year. So, but it's before our next meeting.
Okay. Thanks for that. I think we're all kind of like worn out now at 6:12. We ready to, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
My dog would like to make that motion.
Okay,
I'll
so you're
second
going to do that? Okay. All in favor? Yay?
Yay.
Okay, so officially, let's all say, before we sign off here at 6:13, let's everyone say a big, gigantic thank you, Hillary. We'll miss you. Thank you.
Hillary. Bye.
Thanks,
Yay,
everybody.
Hillary.
All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right,
Ciao.
bye.